Hi, and welcome back to another Papetti Math YouTube video tutorial, where I'm going to be teaching you, yes, you, Algebra 1. And in this video, we're going to be looking at our lesson on histograms. So it says, as you continue your journey through statistics, you will notice that there are several ways to visually represent data. In this lesson, the kind of visual representation that you will learn about is called a histogram. And a histogram is a graph of the frequency distribution in which the y-axis represents the frequency and the x-axis represents the possible range of data values. So that's a big, long definition of what a histogram is. Basically, a histogram looks very similar to a bar graph, but a histogram measures quantitative data, where a bar graph measures categorical data. The main difference between the bar graph and the histogram, besides the quantitative and the categorical part, is that a bar graph has spaces between its bars. In a histogram, the bars are touching because they represent ranges of values. And if you were to have a space between a bar in a histogram, that would mean you're missing a certain range of values, since numbers are continuous. We'll get into that in exercise number 1. The following data values represent the number of chocolate candies in 14 different bags of trail mix. So we have 14 different data points in this data set, and it says to fill in the frequency table below based on the number of instances each value in the specified range occurs. So then we're going to graph the histogram on the grid provided. So first we're going to look and we're going to see how many values we have 0 to 20. So that's the first thing we want to do. We want to see how many values we have from 0 to 20. That's thing number 1. So let's take a look. 15 is a value between 0 and 20. So we'll cross off 15, and we'll do a little tally mark here. 0 to 20, 0 to 20, 0 to 20, 0 to 20, I see just that 1. So we're going to put a 1 in this frequency because the number of times that a value between 0 and 20 occurred was once. Now we're going to look for 21 to 40. So 21 to 40, we have 1. 21 to 40, we have 2. We have 3. We have 3. And then 41 to 60, we have 1. We have 2. We have 3. We have 4. We have 5. We have 6 values, 41 to 60. And again, I cross them out as I go just to make sure that I've used all of them by the end and I wasn't missing any. 61 to 80, I have 1, 2, 3, 3 again. And finally, 81 to 100, I just see the 1 value of 87 there. That's between 81 and 100. So if I look at my frequency table, it does show something that looks very symmetrical. Now, this is not always the case, but this is going to be a symmetrical distribution. So what we're going to do to graph this histogram is you'll notice that on the bottom of the graph, on the x-axis, we have the number of chocolate candies, and we have each range of values over there. So I'm just going to take myself, move myself over there. There we go. Now that I'm over there and out of the way, I'm going to now look at 0 to 20 and think about how many times that frequency occurred. And it's once. So I go up to 1 on my y-axis, but these are not numbered. So I want to make sure to label them 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. I won't need to go up to 6, higher than 6, because 6 is my greatest value, my maximum. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to just make a bar that goes from 0 to 1. And if you want, you could go ahead and you could shade in that bar. Okay, now that you've done that, you go to 21 to 40. And 21 to 40, we're going to go up to 3 on this one. So we're going to draw a bar that goes to 3. And again, they're touching because this goes from 20 to 21, and there's no values between 20 and 21 pieces of chocolate because we're dealing with whole number values only for pieces of chocolate. That would be our appropriate domain. So we're going to shade in this bar as well. Again, I like to shade them in so you could see them better, because if you don't shade them in, it might be tough to see the lines. And then 41 to 60, we have 6. So we're going to go up to 6, and we're going to draw a bar there. And again, we'll shade that in. And then we have 61 to 80, back down at 3. And finally, 81 to 100, we had one of those values. So we're going to shade that bar down there. And what we just created was our first histogram. And notice that the bars are all touching because it's a continuous range of values. And you could look at this histogram and see that the majority of your values are, well, not the majority, but the most of the values are right here in the 41 to 60 range. Where if you were looking at these values, you might not see right away that 41 to 60 was the most common value. So that's why a histogram is a useful visual representation, because you're able to see visually right away from a graph where most of the values occur. Whereas if you had just a set of 1,000 numbers in here, let's take 1,000 for example, you'd just see a whole bunch of numbers and you wouldn't see a pattern, if there was any, where most of the values were occurring. So again, visual representations of data is one of the most useful parts of the statistics unit. And that's why we looked at box and whisker plots so far. We looked at two-way frequency tables, and now we're looking at histograms. So if this video was helpful to give an introduction, on histograms, click the thumbs up button below, give this video a like to let me know that it would help you. And you are now ready to go on to exercise number 2, so you can click on that link right now and go ahead to exercise number 2.